Guilt? Shame? Even solid facts and shiny new campaigns, experts say, not guaranteed to change more suspicious hearts and minds.
It's adult Canadians who haven't been vaccinated that make up 90% of new cases. The latest figures show they're also the ones most likely to be hospitalized or die.
That is the point of vaccine mandates, is that you tighten the restrictions on people until they break down and say, well, I'm going to get it.
CBC is so boring, and it's like that all of the time. And there's a reason for that. Today, I'll show you the documents that detail exactly why it's so boring and all the same. Have you ever wondered how it could be possible for the state broadcaster, which claims to represent a diversity of viewpoints as part of its mandate, could be so homogenous in its views on COVID vaccines and vaccination policies? It's all pro-vaccination, pro-privacy violation, headline after headline after headline. And anyone who rejects the government's vaccine mantra is an anti-vaxxer, anti-science madman. If you are still part of the statistical rounding error of Canadians who watch CBC nightly or still read it, you would think that the entire country is jabbed and perfectly okay with vaccine passports and vaccine workplace mandates.
Tell them to don't be scared, don't, the research, and you take the vaccine, we take the vaccine.
Being unvaccinated made Randy Sams and his wife more vulnerable to severe COVID.
To encourage more people to get vaccinated, if not the stick of the unvaxxed tax, what would you do?
If you are one of those unfortunate souls relying on the conspiracy theorists at CBC for all your news, you'd have no idea that millions of Canadians are either unvaccinated or think their vaccination status is no one's business but their own, and certainly not information for their employer, bartender, personal trainer, or flight attendant to have. But there's a reason why it's like that on the CBC. Because to be a host, a guest, a contractor, or even in the studio audience at CBC, you must be vaccinated. It's here in this access to information filing we hit the CBC with about their vaccination policies. Everyone must comply. No conscientious objectors allowed, no privacy either, I guess. I have more information about this access to information filing, but I thought I would give you a little bit of a sneak peek as I go through it, since this work is only made possible through your generous crowdfunding donations to our special access to information website, rebelinvestigates.com. Okay, let's take a look at this. Short-term employees paid via local payroll. Mostly used by radio, audio, and news for short-term backfill. Despite being paid by local payroll, they are considered employees, sometimes with union contracts. Vaccination requirement by December 1st. Validation of vaccination proof, not attestation. So they had to show up with their vaccine document to show their bosses, which is gross. Anyways, third-party production staff, employees, subcontractors, and guests of third-party production companies when working at a CBC Radio Canada location, including spaces rented by CBC Radio Canada, including Family Feud and Dragon's Den, and then a whole host of French language productions. They also had a vaccination requirement by December 1st. The producer attests on behalf of employees, CBC Radio Canada will not support accommodations. Now they list no accommodations. They don't say we won't support religious ones, but we will support medical ones. This is zero accommodations for any reason. If your medical condition precluded you from becoming vaccinated, sorry, you can't work at CBC anymore. These horrible people. Let's keep going. Guests. All guests who do not fall into any other category. This includes guests for news coverage or interviews, appearances on shows, etc., as well as guests and employees of CBC studio space rentals, job candidates, board of directors, etc. Some of these guests will eventually be paid as performers, but we have no reoccurring relationship with them. Still, vaccination requirement by December 1st. Validation of vaccination proof, not attestation. So if you wanted to be a host on a boring CBC panel, you wanted to be the CBC approved conservative, I cannot think of anything more boring or uninteresting. But if you wanted that job, you had to show up with your proof of vaccination. So I guess no divergent viewpoints on that at all. No conscientious objectors. CBC Radio Canada will not support accommodations. Again, no religious objections, no medical objections. If you had a medical condition that precluded you from becoming vaccinated, you couldn't even be a guest on one of their shows to offer your opinion about people who are discriminated against because of their medical status. Anyway, let's keep going. audience, or public. This is something else. Anyone who enters our workplaces as a member of a studio audience. Vaccination requirement already in effect in provinces that require it, Ontario and Quebec, but they go one step further because they don't care if your province requires it. If CBC wants it, they're going to get it. Look at this. In provinces with no requirement, CBC Radio Canada to impose a vaccination requirement by December 1st. To sit in one of their studio audiences and become a captive member of the public that has to sit through their boring productions. Even then, you had to produce proof of vaccination to the peeping Toms at CBC. Well, that explains a lot, doesn't it? This is why CBC is so hardline on the issue of vaccination even still. They have no one, not a single soul in their entire ecosystem that holds a different opinion. No exceptions, not even medical ones. You had to comply, or you could not be anywhere near the CBC, not a guest to offer a divergent viewpoint, not a host, not a contractor, not even in the audience. Also boring, all the same, all completely unreflective of actual Canadian society. And you paid for it all, $1.5 billion per year in subsidies for one singular vision of Canada on the biggest issue of modern times. Now, there's so much more to come from this access to information filing, thanks to your crowdfunding at rebelinvestigates.com. And let me thank everyone who makes this important work possible, vaccinated or not. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. To support our accountability journalism through access to information filings, please visit rebelinvestigates.com to donate. And thank you for supporting our fearless independence.